Good morning, everybody. My name is Kate. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we are going to talk about nature journaling for this session. And before we start with the journaling, I was going to point out a few women naturalists that you may or may not have heard of throughout the years, and just kind of briefly talk about kind of what they may be known for. And then we're going to talk about nature journaling, and Valley is here with me, and she's going to share some tips and techniques that you can do when you're at home. So I'm going to start us off, and I have some pictures behind me, and here I have Beatrix Potter. Now, if you've heard of Beatrix Potter, you might be more familiar with like Peter Rabbit, Tom Kitten, the stories that she wrote, but she also illustrated, so you may know her drawings were really detailed and very beautiful. And before she started writing those stories, though, she was actually a naturalist, and she would study her surroundings. And she was really well known for studying different types of fungi. She actually would go out and collect them, and she would study what they were. So I have a picture of the fungus here. And she actually even watched how they reproduced, how the spores came out. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to present the paper at the Royal Botanical Gardens in England because she was a woman. And at the time, women were not allowed to do that, and they were not allowed to attend meetings. So her paper was actually presented, and she just was not allowed to do that. We have Anna Comstock. She was a scientist that maybe wasn't quite recognized as a scientist at first. She and her husband studied insects together, and she often did illustrations for his books on these different types of insects. Later in life, though, she started to see how important it was for other people to learn about things in our surroundings. Teachers were maybe having to present this information at schools, but they didn't know what they were teaching, so they would often skip over these topics. So she created the Handbook of Nature Study for people to be able to actually go out and learn about things in nature and how to go about doing that. And so I kind of find that an inspiration because that's some of the things we do here at the Nature Center. We might not make the illustrations, but we want people to get out and to study. We have Maria Martin Bachmann, and she was actually a woman who did beautiful illustrations, beautiful drawings of things in nature. And John James Audubon, who you might know of bird fame, you might know of his bird collections that he created, where he painted all these beautiful plates of birds. But she actually did a lot of the backgrounds for his illustrations. So you can see one of the ones here. I'm sorry, it's getting a little washed out with the way the light is. But she wasn't often recognized for her work, even though it was very detailed and really scientific in the way that she presented that. We have Marion, who is one of the earliest female naturalists that we can probably find in record. And she actually studied insects, specifically butterflies and moths. And she would draw their entire life cycle. So before that, people might have had illustrations of butterflies or moths, but they never had all of them together. And that was one of the things that she really put together, as well as putting her the plants that she saw that were the host plants for these different species. So that was something very unique and very special for her time. And of course, not really being recognized as a scientist, she actually made some really important contributions. And still today, her works are very valuable, not only in the scientific world, but also in the art world. And wrong way. Our last one here, you guys, a lot of people have heard of Rachel Carson. So she didn't really do illustrations, but she used her words. And so she is very well known for several of her books. One of the books that she had was about the sea around us, and kind of just talked about the life at the sea. So a lot of people really enjoyed it, became a bestseller. But later on, she started to see some of the detriments of using pesticides, and so she wrote Silent Spring, which then led to the end of the usage of DDT. So the reason we bring up these women and some of the things they do is because they started off, they were doing these drawings, they were doing that to help them study, to be able to learn about things a little bit more. And that's one of the things you can do with nature journaling. So nature journaling can help with a lot of different avenues, whether if you want to become a better naturalist, you want to study the things around you, you want to improve your observation skills. So what are the things that you notice? What can you put down? Or maybe it's just a way to kind of share your feelings. So all of these different ways can help you create a nature journal. You don't have to be an artist. You can use words. You can draw sketches. You can do all these different things to help you remember. And you can do it while you're in the field, or you can go by memory and put some things out that maybe will help you remember some of the things about a trip. So I often like to keep a journal when I travel, and I'm not so much remembering all the different places that I went, but I'm remembering all the plants and animals that I've seen, and we'll make note of that too. So that's one of the things that helps me kind of remember some of those special parts. Now when you start off with nature journaling, you do need some kind of notebook, and so it can be something like more of an art pad, or it can be like a line journal. So you do want something that's small enough that you can take with you when you're out on your adventures. And of course you can pick pencils, pens, whatever you want. So Valley's going to share with us a little bit about how we can do that. So I'm going to turn the camera around. Whoop. I don't know what's going on here. Is it something? There we go.
Hi everybody, I'm Valley, and I'm going to show you some nature journaling stuff that you can do. So I'll show you a couple examples that I've done. So let's see. This is one that I did in Denmark of just my surroundings. It's not super detailed or anything, but I've been drawing for a long time so I could get kind of the gist. But when you're nature journaling, you want to draw just the idea of an animal or a plant. So what shape are the leaves? Is there a strange beak of a bird? What's the general shape of that? It's really more about observing and looking and seeing the general shape of things. So a good way to kind of get into that mindset that's really fun is looking at something and then drawing it without looking at your paper. It sounds really hard and it doesn't look great, but it's a really good way to get started thinking about how things appear. So that's a good way to start. And then once you get more comfortable, you can start drawing basic ideas of what different stuff looks like. Like this is what I did when I was in Paris. You get the basic idea of the object. It's not really nature, but that's an object that I drew. And then also when you're drawing animals or plants or landscapes, it's good to think about why. Like why do you think that beak has really long or really short? It's good to think about where you are and why that animal or plant might be living there. And just ask questions like that. And you can always write notes and stuff. Let's see if I have any animals for you guys. Well, here's the beach in Michigan. And I just kind of got the general idea. But you don't have to get super detailed or anything. It's just fun to kind of draw the idea and write down maybe what you're feeling, how you're feeling in the moment, some cool plants. Lots of notes is good. But really it's mostly about what you see and how you might write down the things that are like standing out to you, like why something might have a red head or something like that. Let me see. This is a little drawing I did of a lemur. So I just kind of was like, wow, look at that ringed tail. And I wrote that down. I noticed that tail. And just, the vague idea. It's not super detailed. You can get more vague if you want. I could have just drawn the tail. So those are just some tips and different stuff that you can do when you're nature journaling. So
you want to show us a few quick ways to sketch out things?
Yeah. Let's see.
While she's getting her paper ready, I'll mention, I know I'm not on camera, but you should still be able to hear me, that when you are nature journaling, it's your journal. So think about what it is that you want to get out of it. What is it that you want to remember? Is it something that you've observed when you were outside? Is it a feeling that you want to capture? So kind of set a goal for your journal before you start. So that can kind of help guide the types of things that you're going to put in there. All right, so I'm going to try to tilt the camera down, and that way we can see what Valley's going to do for us here.
Okay, so first I just kind of want to talk about different beaks. So there's beaks that are a little bit smaller, and you can just do like an angle like that, and if it's just whatever is enough for you to remember what it looks like. And you can draw a little bit of a head if you want. And that kind of tells me that might be a finch, something with that shaped beak. And then there's also a longer beak, and you can just really simple lines is more than enough, because you definitely know there's a difference between these two birds. And you can just do a little arch, put a little eye if you want, just to identify that it's a bird. And then like if there's a crown, like maybe this is a pileated woodpecker, maybe it would look like that. And maybe you want to talk about how they're sitting. So just easy little lines. Like maybe this woodpecker was on the side of a tree. And that tells me more information than if I just drew a random bird with no identifying markers. So that tells me this bird had a crown and a long beak, and it sat this way on a tree. So those are good ways to figure out kind of generally what kind of animal you're looking at. So you go, oh yeah, I remember what it looks like. Now I can figure out what bird it was. Another thing that I was talking about is when you draw something without looking. So that would mean I would just be staring ahead. I'll draw that bobcat. So doesn't even look like a bobcat at all when I'm drawing, but it's letting me know, it's really letting me look and see all the features of the bobcat without worrying about what it looks like. So that doesn't look like a bobcat at all, but it's kind of fun because I really had to look at the bobcat and see what it looks like and like really observe it. So I have an even better idea of what that bobcat looks like because I drew it without looking at my paper, because I wasn't worried about what it looked like. I was looking at the actual object. So that's a fun way to get started, I think.
And I'm going to move it a little closer because it's kind of giving a glare with this light. So I'm going to kind of behind so you can see the better of what she was drawing here.
So this was the bobcat I just drew. I wasn't looking at my paper at all, so it doesn't matter what it looks like. But when you don't look at your paper, you don't worry about what it's going to look like. You just observe what you're looking at, and you really take in what the object or animal looks like. And these were the birds I did. I just did a really simple lines just to tell me, well, this bird has a smaller beak, this one has a longer beak, and this one has a crown or a bunch of feathers on the back of its head, and this one doesn't. So I don't really need more information than that, unless this one has markings, and then you can do something really simple like that. And now it's a chickadee. So just really simple lines, because it doesn't really matter what it looks like unless you want to sit there and draw a whole landscape like I showed you before, because that really just let me take in the area and maybe some of the feelings and emotions I was feeling by drawing those landscapes. But that's if you have a lot of time. Animals are hard because they move around. So you just want to get the really basic idea of what that animal looked like so you can remember.
Yeah, and you could also make notes beside that of what colors those different parts were. So maybe if it was the woodpecker, maybe you would say, red. Since you were drawing with a black pen, you could write red and have that note, or maybe say even what kind of tree it was on. That could be something helpful too, that would be helpful. So yeah, both of those things. What about a plant? Can you give us an example of maybe like some points of a plant that you might really focus on if you wanted to make notes about it?
Yeah. So what I like to do for trees that have pine needles is just to do squiggles like that, just to kind of identify that it had needles, if you just need a really quick one. And then you can also get more specific and draw the actual, how the fronds are on it a little bit closer up, and you can kind of connect those like that. And then you can also do the same for maybe a hardwood tree that has leaf shapes like that. So just the shape of it. Sometimes if it's got a really interesting vein where like it branches off on the inside, you could draw that. But I like to draw the whole tree or the whole plant, and then go down to put like an arrow or something for like a close-up on the leaf is really good, because the leaves are very identify the tree or the plant really well. So it's good to put the whole tree and then maybe a little leaf somewhere is a really good way to get the gist of that. And then if there's a weird color or weird flower, is really good to do like a little flower with like a color. You could say orange or whatever color that is. So yeah, those are some basics on how you can draw different plants and animals and label them and write lots of stuff around it is really good. The more information, the better.
All right. Well, thank you, Valley, for sharing those tips. Sorry to show all the mess in the background, but I'm having to walk around, and since I took it off to make it a little easier to see. But we hope that you will try to do a little nature journaling, and you don't have to be an expert artist to do this. As she showed you, it was quick sketches, basic shapes, triangles, circles, lines, things like that you can use. Using your words, helping you figure that out. And then setting your intention is, like I said at the beginning, is kind of the best thing is trying to, what do you want to get out of this journal? Is it something you want to remember later? Is it something to help you make observations? And we'll put a link later to go along with this video and to go with this post that will send you to a set of YouTube videos that were created about doing nature journaling. So you can follow that along, and it kind of gives you a step-by-step. So thank you for tuning in. At 12 o'clock today, we're going to get a chance to visit with some of our animals that are here at the Nature Center. And we are going to focus on female animals and talk about what some of the differences are between them and their counterparts. So thank you for joining us this morning, and we hope to see you again later today.
Thank you.